one of the key hurdles for buying an EV car is range anxiety. Range anxiety. And now that you can buy a Ford car and have access to Tesla's network, that literally gets rid of one of the only moats that Tesla had left. Keep in mind, Consumer Reports ranks Tesla's cars with respect to reliability near dead last. J.D. Power ranks them last in reliability. And what question mark the similar outfit in the UK ranks their cars last?
You know, beauty's in the eye of the beholder. I will say it. I am not a fan of the Mach-E styling. I think it looks kind of like a gremlin and a Kia had a child. But
we also like their locations. We like their charging technology. It works really well as well. So in 25, we're going to put their plug on our vehicle.
Ross, as a Tesla shareholder, do you like it?
I love it. I think it's just a wonderful move by Tesla because you have to look at the business as different sections. And Tesla charging is one of the most important and valuable parts of Tesla today because the network works so well compared to the competitors.
Uh-oh, looks like there's a partnership. Thursday after the close of the bell, we get on Twitter Spaces and find out that CEO Jim Farley and Techno King Elon Musk have decided to allow Ford access to the superchargers with some contingencies. We'll get into that a little bit later. Both Ford and Tesla stock up. I want to say investors found the news bullish for both companies, but let's get into the weeds and figure this out on this new dynamic duo. Yo, Robin, Batman's got you.
all right, let's dive further into this. With us tonight, Mark Fields, former president and CEO of Ford, and a CNBC contributor, and Gordon Johnson, founder and CEO of GLJ Research. Mark, you heard the conversation. I mean, this has got to be a huge win for Ford because the charging network is the gas station chain of the EV. And now you can just go to somebody else's chain.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of positives in this for Ford. I mean, the bottom line, Brian, is Ford has introduced a number of EV products into the marketplace. They have more coming. And they're saying, listen, one of the biggest obstacles for consumers is charging stations. They want to feel comfortable that they can charge anywhere, just like they can fill up at a gas station today. So for Ford, they get more locations. And as Phil just mentioned, you know, the existing charging non-Tesla network, it has real reliability problems. You know, chargers being down,
it's awful.
working.
It's awful. I've done a number of road trips. It's terrible. I'll tweet out my segment again later on after the show.
So it just takes away another one of the obstacles. So for Ford, I think this is a big win. And as Phil said, for Tesla, it reinforces them as the leader. They get access to the IRA funding to build out the charging network and get incentives from the government. Yeah. Listen, this gives them some kind of incremental revenue or profit because they're not doing this just to be nice guys.
No, and that's what you heard my questions, Gordon. I was a little bit confused by because it's like Ford, as big as it is, Tesla is. They're the big dogs in EVs. Of course, Ford's going to sell this as a win because they're partnering up. But I do worry. The first thing I'm thinking of is if I'm a Tesla owner and I'm rolling up, I-94 to Kenosha from Chicago, and I go to the supercharger there, and there's 5 Fords blocking me out, and now I've got to wait. I'm going to be ticked off. Do they make any money off the charging? Because it is illegal to sell electricity. They just sell time, I believe.
Before we let Gordon spew his bearish narrative, I just want to say that I agree with everything so far. I do believe this deal is good for Ford. I have a Tesla, but I also have the CCS adapter for it because when I bought my Tesla, the range anxiety, I had it. It was real and no longer exists. But when I utilized EVgo and some of these other charging stations, it was god awful. I couldn't believe how bad it was. I got the CCS adapter simply because I'd rather have it and not need it than to need it and not have it. But even when I did use it, it was a terrible situation to be sure. The Tesla supercharging network is the only network out there with any kind of reliability, and we got a 99.5% uptime for all of these chargers. Respond to the anchor about the 5 Fords hogging up Tesla supercharging stations. 1, it ain't that big a deal. You'll be all right. 2, find a different charging station to charge at or wait. And 3, make sure you charge from home. If you utilize one of those 3 solutions, you'll be just fine. Ford, GM, and whoever else wants to be on the supercharging network can be on it, because by the time that they actually do this, there will be an order of magnitude more supercharging stations. I can't wait until we start converting these gas stations into supercharging stations. And who knows, maybe some other company will create a reliable supercharging network. In the meantime, Tesla's not going to stop putting up supercharging stations. They're going to spread like wildfire and everybody can get on. It's not going to be that big a deal. On to you, Gordon. What's your bearish narrative? I can't wait.
That's a great point, Brian. Thanks for having me. The positives here for Tesla are clear. The positives are the taxpayer is funding this. But this isn't new. We knew that as part of them getting EV credits, they were going to have to open up their charging network. So this isn't new. The negatives, though, and I know you're going to say, of course you're going to say this, but far outweigh the positives. Let me explain. One of the key hurdles for buying an EV car is range anxiety. Range anxiety. And now that you can buy a Ford car and have access to Tesla's network, that literally gets rid of one of the only moats that Tesla had left. Keep in mind, Consumer Reports ranks Tesla's cars with respect to reliability near dead last. J.D. Power ranks them last in reliability. And what question mark, the similar outfit in the UK ranks their cars last. Other cars have better interior, equal or similar real-world range, and better serviceability. So the fact that Tesla, in our view, this is being forced by the U.S. government, is being forced to open up their supercharging network, I think is a negative, because now you're going to be less inclined to buy that Tesla car and you'll go buy that Mach-E, which better interior, similar, better range, etc. So I think this is overall a negative for Tesla.
All right. That's a lot there, Gordon. Let's go ahead and start with taxpayer sentiment. Tesla will take these EV credits. They are on the table. Their goal was never to create a moat with their supercharging stations. They're doing just fine with their software and battery technology when it comes to moats. But if other companies, which they need to happen to accelerate the world to a sustainable energy economy, Tesla will open up their supercharging network because everybody else is garbage. For the same reason that you mentioned, Gordon, range anxiety is one of the major reasons why most people don't own an EV. I had it too myself back in 2020. Range anxiety cleared. Thank you, Tesla supercharging network. Thank you, solar panels. Thank you, Powerwall generator in my garage. I love all of this, and it's part of the Tesla ecosystem, which Ford customers will then be exposed to, practically by osmosis, just by being around other Tesla customers. This is a double-edged sword for Ford, and they understand that, but they cannot have their customers suffer with terrible charging networks. It just can't happen. They won't have those customers. At least they may be able to retain some of their loyal customers as they use Tesla supercharging networks. Which leads me to your next argument. When they're opting to buy the Ford Mach-E, we'll choose the Ford Mach-E instead of the best-selling car Model Y. I don't know, there might be some fault in that logic, but maybe some customers will be like, I guess I'll just choose the Ford because I've been a Ford person, I'm a Ford guy, blah, blah, blah. Ford equals family, and now that we've got this charging network, I'm just gonna stick with Ford. Sure, why not? But that's not who Tesla's going for. Tesla does not care if the Ford customer sticks with Ford or comes over to Tesla. The more the merrier, but I guarantee you, they are not concerned about Ford or any other legacy OEM, startup, whomever, to come steal their market share. We looked at that graphic earlier. The market share is ginormous, and of course it's gonna come down, but I fully expect Ford's market share to increase. But that doesn't mean that Tesla is going to suffer because of it. Their market share has to come down simply by mathematics. They're getting less and less of the overall pie that is the EV market. Then there were some arbitrary statements that Tesla is ranked low on reliability. Well, to that, I say to each his own. I am perfectly satisfied with the quality of my vehicle, the highly adaptable software, the overall functionality, the style, and the goddamn performance. I love my Tesla, and that's all that really matters. You can sling mud all day, but I guarantee you do an apples to apples comparison for any EV and compare it to any Tesla, you're going to get the same result. Tesla has better functionality. Tesla has better style. The Tesla has better performance, and I'm going to choose a Tesla, especially if the price is comparable. And guess what? Tesla's going to continue to drive those prices down, and there will be more butts in Tesla seats, regardless of who has access to their charging network. And all that is more consistent revenue when it comes to Tesla's supercharging network. Come on, Gordon. You're going to have to hit me up a little bit harder than that.
Listen, beauty's in the eye of the beholder. I will say it. I am not a fan of the Mach-E styling. I think it looks kind of like a gremlin and a Kia had a child. But that said,
damn, shots fired.
Do you think this will pop Ford's EV sales? To Gordon's point.
Well, I think on balance, it's a positive, right? Because you're taking away, one of the obstacles beyond just introducing the product. The other obstacles for adoption of EV are cost, which is going to be solved over time, and then just getting customers comfortable that they can charge wherever they want, just like they fill up at the gas station today. So I think this is a net positive.
Yeah.
To Gordon's point, I think, listen, if you're in a Cybertruck and you're waiting behind an F-150 or a Ford E-Transit, that's not going to be good for you. But keep in mind, this announcement was only for 50% of the Tesla supercharging stations. And Tesla has a lot of data on those high volume stations. So I'm sure they're keeping those,
it won't be the one off I-94, right, in the Mars Cheese Castle in Kenosha. It's going to be like, you can use our charging network in Pollock, South Dakota, just under the North Dakota border. That one's wide open for you guys.
Yeah, Tesla's no dummy. You've got access to the supercharging stations that we figure don't have enough traffic anyway. But don't worry, if you're a loyal customer, or maybe if you want to use the Tesla app, Tesla's no dummy. There's going to be so many layers of usage and profit that Tesla's going to have baked into this. They can't help it because Ford is bent over a barrel and Tesla's back there doing pelvic thrust asking, who's your daddy? Ford had no choice. They did the right move by allowing their customers access to the Tesla supercharging network via their own app. That's what needed to happen because Tesla was going to allow them to use the supercharging network regardless using the adapter, but they were going to need the Tesla app. So Ford proactively got in there and said, please, please, please use our app. You can use these chargers, but they're going to still want to use the chargers that Tesla has closed off to them, more than likely. Tesla's king of data. They know where all these chargers are in use and how often, and that's how they determine whether they need to open up new chargers in the surrounding areas. Tesla is no dummy. Let's go ahead and see how Jim Farley tees this up.
Starting early next year, Ford owners will be granted access to thousands of Tesla superchargers across the United States and Canada. It's part of a new partnership announced on Twitter Spaces by Tesla CEO Elon Musk and Ford CEO Jim Farley. Farley joins us right now, first on Squawk Box this morning, to talk more about it. And Jim, welcome. This is some pretty big and pretty surprising news.
Yeah, it was a big week for us, Becky and Andrew. And this announcement, we think, will really help our EV customers have a much better experience.
It was surprising just from the perspective that you all are rivals. I don't know if you want to call respectful rivals, frenemies, something along those lines.
Rival, frenemies. I guess you can be envious of the success that a startup had to blow you out of the water and maybe tank your internal combustion cells, sending you into a free fall to figure out how to electrify your entire fleet. Is that what you would call a rival? Anybody?
We've been actually working on it for a couple of years. We know that charging, we're number 2 in EV sales in the US behind Tesla. And we know charging is a really big deal for our customers and adoption. And we're now scaling, we're basically doubling our EV capacity this year. And we're going to get to 2 million in a couple of years. So this is a big deal for the company and for our customers. And we have about 10,000 fast chargers now. This is going to double that. So 22,000 fast chargers. It'll be the best network of fast charging in the country for any brand, and that's why we were interested in it. We also like their locations. We like their charging technology. It works really well as well. So in 25, we're going to put their plug on our vehicle.
Yep, Ford has 10,000 fast chargers outside of the Tesla supercharging network that they'll have access to. Too bad those things suck. So that's why you have to partner with and change your next generation vehicles lineup to have that NACS charger to make it easier on them. at least they had the tremendous foresight to realize that that's a dead-end street, and it's only going to become a hindrance to customers and future sales. When you got to capitulate, you got to capitulate. You do it for your customers. You do it for your fan base. Move on.
What's interesting about this is, this is, if you went back to the VHS Betamax comparison on all of these things, VHS eventually won out. You are choosing to go with Tesla, which has been riding with the NACS standard, versus the CCS standard that the Biden administration and most of the U.S. automakers, EV makers, have been pushing. Why Tesla? Why this standard? And do you think by you and Tesla teaming up together, you kind of win over and can change what's going to be the standard?
Don't worry, Jim. I got this one. We're choosing the NACS standard because Tesla's already got thousands of chargers that work versus the CCS standard where the chargers work half the time. So it was a pretty easy choice for us. Don't want to make any more of those if we don't have to. We just rather use the winner, the NACS charger, the most reliable in North America, and forego that other crap. Oh, Jim, go ahead. Sorry.
It's a great question. So we believe that customers should have, as you said, the option of using either standard, and with adapters and software, we could do that both. But we really like the Tesla standard from a customer standpoint. When you look at how easy it is to plug in, if you drop the cord, the Tesla system is more robust. The other standard is great, and we'll have adapters for that. But we also really love the locations. Like, I remember I was going on vacation with my kids. My kids kept saying, "Hey, Dad, can we stop there? That's one of those Tesla supercharging." I was like, "No, kids, we're going to go over here behind this building."
Damn! Holy smokes! Backseat burn from the Farley kids. Guess what, Jim? I know you're running with Ford, but those kids, they sound like Tesla customers in the future. But with the advent of full self-driving, maybe they won't even need a license depending on how old they are. But that's a topic for another time. I'm sorry that your kids burned you on that road trip there.
So it's a bet for our customers, and we want our customers to be able to use both systems actually with adapters.
Jim, long term, when you think about this friends, enemy, frenemy situation, if Tesla becomes that standard, is that good or bad for you? I mean, as you try to evaluate and think through what that means over time.
Don't worry, Jim. I got this one too. Let me channel my inner Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson. It doesn't matter whether it's good or not for Jim. Regardless of whether or not Tesla's perceived competition decides to partner with them, like the smart Jim Farley and Ford, they're going to eat their lunch because the chargers are going to be open to them anyway. You might as well get some kind of benefit because the customers, regardless of whether they're from Lucid, GM, Ford, or name your auto manufacturer, they're going to be using the Tesla supercharging network because it works. And since that is going to happen regardless, Ford can't even bother themselves with that. That's going to be a revenue stream only for Tesla. In the future, non-Tesla vehicles will be paying a considerable amount more than Tesla customers simply because Tesla customers come first. If you want to use the supercharging network, you got to pay a premium. So Tesla customers are going to have a little bit of anxiety behind this. It's to Tesla's benefit to have non-Tesla EVs charging in their stations. And as a Tesla customer, you got three options. If there's a non-Tesla blocking your charging station, you can A, go to a different Tesla charging station, B, wait, or C, go plug in at home. Get the solar panels, get the power wall, utilize the power of the sun, and have a gas station in your own garage. How about that? You just use the sun as your perceived gas bill. That's what we do. I don't really worry about Tesla supercharger stations. I know that everybody can't have that similar situation, but you got options. You either go along or you move along. You pick.
Yeah, we think it's good for us because we're going to have the Ford Pass software. So people don't have to leave the Ford Pass software that they use for charging at their home or to unlock the vehicle or use their phone as a key. When they go use the Tesla supercharger, they're still using Ford. We were very concerned if they had to switch over to use that Tesla software, but that was part of the deal. And it was a deal breaker for us for the reason you mentioned.
And how seamless, therefore, will payment and the like be using those superchargers?
Yeah, so early next year on the Ford Pass app, we're going to have a bunch of different payment options like we do today. So customers just use their, e-pay system, whatever they choose, and there'll be no issues. It'll be super simple. We're going to ship an adapter to everyone who's bought a Ford EV. This is not just for the future; it's for all the people who already bought our vehicles. So they'll get an adapter from Ford. They go on Ford Pass. They pick the payment option they want. All the billing is the same as it is today. So it's going to be super easy.
And what do you think long term the likelihood is that GM and others will follow suit, and that effectively the Tesla superchargers will become the standard?
I think there's a chance. The CCS is a great standard, but it was pretty much done by kind of a committee, and I think GM and others are going to have a big choice to make. Do they want to have fast charging for a lot of customers, or do they want to stick to their standard and have less charging? So I don't know, but I think we're number 2 last year. They were number 1. I think that's going to be a tough choice for those companies.
Before we move on, I want to touch on that. Ford Pass better be seamless. It better not have any hiccups whatsoever. That'll be on them, because Tesla's still going to offer fast charging. But when they do it on the next gen vehicles, it has to be seamless, because I imagine charging your non-Tesla, there's going to be some interlocks there. But if you're using the NACS charging, it shouldn't truly matter, right? It should just go. So I'm kind of curious to see how this is going to play out and whether or not this is going to be to Ford's benefit. But as it stands right now, it's a good deal.
Joining us to discuss what it means for both companies, Gerber Kawasaki CEO Ross Gerber, a Tesla shareholder, and former Ford CEO, CNBC contributor Mark Fields. Gentlemen, good morning to both of you. Mark, how surprised were you about this collaboration?
Well, it's a bit surprising, but it's also very, very practical by the Ford team. I mean, they have these products in the marketplace. They have these products coming. And listen, the bottom line is they needed widespread access to superchargers. And with Tesla having the most superchargers out there, actually a 2-to-1 ratio over the other standard, it made it pretty simple for Ford to say, you know what, I'm not going to spend the time building the own network. Let's take advantage of the Tesla one. It has good reliability, good locations, and it takes one of the inhibitors or impediments away from customers as they think about EVs.
Ross, as a Tesla shareholder, do you like it?
I love it. I think it's just a wonderful move by Tesla, because you have to look at the business as different sections. And Tesla charging is one of the most important and valuable parts of Tesla today, because the network works so well compared to the competitors. So Ford is making a super smart move by plugging into the network. And for Tesla, they're going to get all this fee revenue from Ford users now joining the Tesla supercharging network, which I think will end up being very profitable for Tesla.
Ross Gerber, just echoing the sentiments. This is very good news. The market on Friday totally agrees. Both Ford and Tesla up. Ford customers benefit. Tesla makes money. Win-win, baby.
What was in it for Elon? Is it about the fees, or is there something more to it? Because I can easily imagine a scenario in which they decided to have a walled garden and basically step on the throat of some of these legacy OEMs.
Well, listen, I think there's a number of advantages for Tesla. First off, it just reinforces that they're the leader in this space. When you have, a traditional automaker like Ford saying, I'm going to use their standard, and in their products coming in 2025, Ford's actually going to adopt their North American charging standard, which is a big deal. But secondly, they qualify now for the IRA funding from the government to help further build out their charging infrastructure. So again, they're getting federal assistance, if you will, to aid their business. And, I think one of the most ironic things is, prior to this, the traditional automakers were buying EV tax credits from Tesla. Well, now that's waning. Guess what? Now they're going to start to be able to gain some new revenues and profitability from providing, the charging stations. So I think there's a lot of advantages there. The only disadvantages is, listen, if you're in a Cybertruck and you're in a line behind a Ford F-150 or a Mach-E, that's going to be a bit of a problem.
Ross, there had been some, I would argue, in the industry who were bringing their adoption curve, their long-term adoption curve down a little bit, maybe because less urgency, sticker shock, gas prices are cheap. But I wonder if we really do get this interoperability, if those curves need to be raised again.
Well, I think one of the things is that when they started the charging thing, they wanted to have one standard across the entire world. And a lot of people balked at Tesla's standard and didn't adopt it. So this is a reversal of something from many years ago that was ultimately probably a mistake for these companies. So Ford adopting it is really good. But what really is going to happen is the new model for Tesla charging are these massive charging areas like they put in Santa Monica with 150 stalls. So the worry about like Cybertrucks being behind Fords and all that, I think is legitimate, maybe short term, but longer term, there's going to be tons of charging stations. And so this is a win-win for the climate. It's for EVs, for Ford, for Tesla. And it will help mass adoption of EVs on a much greater scale. So, I'm very, very excited about this because ultimately our goal is to see EVs become a dominant, vehicle in the global, driving world, and so this is going to help a lot.
And I do believe that's enough said. The adoption rate for EVs, many people question it. And I think that's one of the major factors is that people underestimate how fast EVs are going to take over internal combustion engine new sales, auto sales in general. There will be more EVs entering in the used car market, and those are going to be bought like hotcakes, primarily as gateway vehicles for those that are hesitant. They're going to buy a cheaper used electric vehicle just to see if it is something that they're interested in or can reliably use in their day-to-day lives. And that'll be on top of those still purchasing the new electric vehicles from a variety of manufacturers simply because they know that that is where the industry is headed. And as production increases, not only for Tesla, but Ford plans to do 2 million vehicles by 2026. Tesla will do 2 million vehicles this year. And then there's a variety of other players trying to make money in this space. Every electric vehicle that is produced will be purchased, and those individuals will not go back to internal combustion engines. They just won't. Even if you have these of EVs, they will be electric vehicle customers. Internal combustion engines are dead. They just don't know it yet. They have this terminal illness that they haven't identified yet, and it will be grossly apparent in the next 5 years. Ford is doing all the right things. I believe they will survive if they continue to piggyback off of Tesla, off of Batman. Robin will succeed. That's all I got. Be easy. Peace.